Welcome back to the channel, everyone, where I've been restoring this 1969 Honda Trail CT70. If you've been following along, in the last video we installed the front fork, and I said we were going to do the rear end next, but I'm actually waiting on a couple pieces of hardware in the mail. So today I decided let's switch it up a little bit. Let's instead dig into the electrical components that'll be integrated into this bike. Now, a lot of people dread this part. They hate wiring. It's a lot of trial and error, but luckily I have a background in software development and electrical engineering. So in this video, I'm going to show you my approach on how to integrate all the different components together into the Honda Trail. So let me set up a tripod and we'll get started. All right, in order to make this video easier to follow along, I've decided to break it down into 3 bite-sized chunks. The first step is figuring out what wire does what. We'll be looking at the headlight, the taillight, and the turn signals. After we get that sorted, next it's time to map out all the controls we'll be using. This means figuring out the left and right handlebar controls. And finally, now that we know what all the electronics are and what controls what, it's time we wire it all together to get a fully functioning system. We'll start simple and gradually piece it all together. Here's the equipment I'll be using to figure out which wire does what. For this example, I'll be using this integrated taillight. You can see it has a bunch of different colored wires sticking out the back. To make my job a million times easier, I'm going to use these wires with alligator clips attached. They're super cheap on Amazon and worth every penny. Next, I'm going to use a circuit tester with indicator light. I'll clamp it onto the battery to quickly test for connectivity. This is the battery I'll be using in my setup. It's a 12-volt lithium battery. It's light and weighs practically nothing. And finally, some good old-fashioned pen and paper. We'll be using it to document all the results. The problem with this stuff from eBay and Amazon is that it almost never comes with a wiring diagram. Here's how I figure out what's what. The first thing I do is I attach the ground wire to the negative terminal. There's a couple different color wires here, but almost always the ground wire is black or green. Next, we attach the circuit tester to the positive terminal. Now, going through each connection one by one, we can see what each wire does. This one is for the brake. This one is for the right turn signal. And finally, the left. Write down all your findings and keep it in a folder with other documents for your bike. Now it's time to figure out the controls. These are the ones I'll be using for this project. I'll start by unscrewing the back so I can access the insides. Look at each color wire and trace it back to the switch. Most switches will only have 2 wires, but some switches like turn signals will have 3. Double check you didn't leave out any colors by inspecting the wiring harness at the end. And, just like last time, write down your results and keep in a folder for later reference. Alright, sweet, now it's time to tie it all together. For this example, I'll be wiring up this 12-volt flasher module and see if I can get it working. So this is as simple as it gets. Basically, connect the battery to the flasher and then the flasher to the taillight. And look at that, it works. Now let's increase the complexity just a little bit by adding in the controls from earlier. Here you can see I've wired the battery to the flasher and then the flasher to the controls. Pressing the right turn signal works. Pressing the hazards works too. In combination of both the hazards and the signal works as expected. Nice. And finally, let's ratchet up the complexity all the way to the max by introducing the instrument cluster. This is the only gauge that I'll have on the bike and all the electronics will feed into it. Pressing the turn signal, you can see the little icon flash on the dashboard. Looks awesome. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that helps somebody out there who's trying to figure out how to wire modern features into their old Honda Trail. If you get stuck or have any questions, just drop it down below and I'll get back to you when I can. As always, if you want to follow along with this build, please consider subscribing. And until next time, thanks for watching.